Hello, I'm Jenny Fern and welcome to my library. I'm a chaotic neutral mechanical engineer who's really into permaculture and wants to talk about books. So let's talk about books. No. Today I would like to talk about NetGalley. And if you want to hear more about NetGalley as a platform, I'm going to talk about all of that in the beginning. And if you would like to stick around, I will be going through my initial experience reading books through NetGalley and my reviews of those books in kind of a vlog format towards the middle end of this video. I have heard about NetGalley, being somebody who's on BookTube, watching BookTube. I don't know what came over me, but I was thinking, I have over 500 subscribers. I have to learn how to be that girl. So I thought I should probably learn more about new releases and try to understand new releases a little bit better, because I don't know any new releases, know nothing about the current buzz. I would still like to stay away from the trend side because I think it obscures my own interests and makes it a little bit more confusing for me to understand who I am. I will still try to stay true to myself, but I did want to explore what NetGalley was. So NetGalley is an online platform that allows reviewers to connect with publishers and authors through early or advanced copies of their books, and to be able to give reviews of work before its actual publication date to generate some reviews basically and some talk about the book before it's released, so that people are more informed and excited about the book when it is actually published. Starting brand new, I didn't know how it was going to go. I didn't know how it worked, but I logged into NetGalley and I saw that you could request books, and surprisingly to me, I have been approved for 2 books that I've requested so far. Gosh, I don't know when I signed up for NetGalley, but I'll put the date here for when that happened. I don't think I've had to wait very long at all to get approval to review these books, which again was surprising to me. The only thing that you have to put together is your profile, where you have a little bio. And I can tell you what my bio says. I'm a book lover who has a smaller YouTube channel with a cozy and approachable demeanor. Do you think I'm cozy and approachable? I don't know. I am a sustainably focused woman in STEM who loves to read and discuss books, which is true. I also linked this YouTube channel as the primary location where I share reviews. You also select books that you're interested in. So I selected comics, graphic novels, and manga, general adult fiction, literary fiction, middle grade, non-fiction adult, novellas and short stories, outdoors and nature, sci-fi and fantasy, and science. I'm honestly still really surprised that sci-fi and fantasy are put into the same category, because I am a sci-fi girly, I am not a fantasy girly. I have given reviews or feedback for 4 books so far, and I have been approved for 6. The recommended feedback ratio is 80%, and right now I'm at 67% because I haven't gotten to 2 of the books that are on my list to review. So there is a way to scroll around for books that are in your interest area. So you can also look at books where you don't have to request access to read them, so that you can build up your reviews and you can read books where they're not exactly vetting the people who are reviewing them. I did that for the first several books that I have reviewed. For me, I also focused on graphic novels and children's books because I knew I could get a feel for how it worked without really sinking down and reading a full-length novel or a full-length fiction book. To actually read the books, there is a NetGalley app called NetGalley Shelf, which allows you to read the books on, for me, it's my phone. And that's been a little challenging with some of these like larger scale graphic novels. So now I'm going to go into the books that I read, the authors that I read from, and the publishers, because this is really focused on giving reviews for books early and kind of connecting with publishers and authors. I thought it would make sense to talk a little bit about the publishers and authors as well as the books themselves. The first book that I want to talk about is Antoine de Saint-Exupery by Maria Isabel Sanchez Vegara. And the publication date is November 4th, 2024. I have such a soft spot for Antoine de Saint-Exupery because I love The Little Prince, and also his book Wind, Sand, and Stars. When I saw that this book was available for anybody to read and review, I picked it up immediately. This is published through the Quarto Publishing Group, and it is the Francis Lincoln Children's Book imprint. This is also a part of the Little People Big Dreams series of biographies for children. Maria Isabel Sanchez Vegara was born in Barcelona and is a writer of children's books. She wrote a children's book in 2014 for her twin nieces for their birthday, and that became the first book in this Little People Big Dreams series. And she works with a variety of illustrators for the books in this series. And it looks like she has books for all sorts of people, including modern pop stars like Taylor Swift, and also fashion designers, scientists, just a whole bunch of different sorts of people. Hello. Got some big hair today because it's raining, crazily enough. I spent some wonderful time in the garden trimming stuff down, doing a bit of a chop and drop. Now I have to read a children's book that I got from NetGalley called Antoine de Saint-Exupery, because your girl got a children's book of one of my favorite authors, because I have absolutely loved The Little Prince, and then I absolutely loved Wind, Sand, and Stars. I read quite a lot of this already. I'm gonna finish it up and give my review. I still don't really fully understand how to use NetGalley. I've just started down this path. It is really new for me, and I'm just excited about the idea of reading stuff that is new. I'm back already. I haven't written my review yet, but I did just finish reading the book. It was so cute. I thought this was a really sweet book, and you know how emotional I've gotten before about how he died so shortly after he published The Little Prince. And I'm gonna cry. There's a page, the last page of the book. I have chills all on my head just thinking about it. And this also shared something that I had never known about, and it was that him and his wife moved to New York after France surrendered to Germany. This was so cute. The illustration style was adorable, and I thought some of the details of the character, like when he's a little boy, he has this little pilot's cap on all the time. The text of the story was, it's children's text, so it's not a ton to say about it, but it was enjoyable. What a wonderful topic, I feel like, to write about. Obviously, I'm biased because I had such an experience reading Wind, Sand, and Stars this year. And Wind, Sand, and Stars is mentioned twice in this book, I think. This will be getting a 5-star review from me. I loved reading it as an adult, as a fan of the author. I didn't read this to a child or anything, so take my review with a grain of salt, I suppose. The next book that I have to talk about is actually the first book that I reviewed through NetGalley, and that is Witchcraft, A Graphic History by Lindsay, Squire. I picked this book up because, again, it was in that available to everybody, like you could read it right now, category, and I was trying to dip my toes, get my toes wet. I thought it would be so fun to read about witches in a graphic novel, so I picked this book up. This book was not exactly what I was expecting, and even when I was reading it, it wasn't what I thought it should have been, I suppose. Witchcraft, A Graphic History, is published by Quarto Publishing Group as well, but it is the Leaping Hare Press imprint. So Lindsay Squire is a witch. She practices eclectic witchcraft and has the Instagram account The Witch of the Forest. She has several other books that are about witches, like The Witch of the Forest Guide to, and this is a series of books, and she also has tarot card decks. She lives in Yorkshire in the UK, and she has 2 cats, Luna and Merlin. And this has a publication date of October 14th, so this is available readily to all folks at this point. Welcome to my bathroom. The first time we've ever been here, besides showing you this planter. We're in here for a reason, and it's because I'm going to be applying a calendula oil to my skin as like a little bit of self-care, and this is probably the most like witchy thing that I have. I am reviewing this book, Witchcraft, A Graphic History. I definitely have some thoughts. It's a graphic novel, but it's kind of like a historical story, and then also I'm trying to figure out what genre, like if this is meant for children or not. Also, apologies for the giant forehead that you never see. It's there, it exists. This is my oil. This is calendula flowers in a mixture of coconut oil and olive oil, and I use it for my face. It's beautiful golden liquid, I get that on my skin, and calendula is good for the skin. It is healing. Which gets me to the topic of this book. So it's about witchcraft, but very specifically it's about this specific witch, Biddy Early, who is an Irish witch, or was an Irish witch. She was accused of witchcraft and went through like a whole trial, I guess, and the people decided that they liked her. A lot of what I've learned about her, I'm actually getting from the summary and not from the text of the graphic novel or the story of the graphic novel. So it's a really weird combination of general information about witches and current practicing witches and the story of Biddy Early. You know what? I feel like you see those videos where it's, you know, men raised by their fathers, men raised by their mothers, and then men raised by flies. That's what I feel like right now. Now, let's change places because I feel super awkward in here, and let's talk about this book. So this book was structured in a unique way. I'm trying to figure out if this is meant for children because it is broken up where it'll explain like terminology or like various historical instances on some spreads. So it'll take you out of the story that you're reading about Biddy Early, this Irish witch, and it'll take you into learning about magical creatures or learning about witches' materials or types of witches and stuff like that. So it really is reminiscent to me of some of the books that I read when I was a child, learning about like types of rocks or whatever like that. I was genuinely interested in Biddy Early's story. So the description of this book puts in some information about Biddy Early that I did not see captured in the story that I feel like made it more of a story than what I read. Biddy Early lived from 1798 to 1874 in Ireland and was the first to appear on the historical record as a witch. She took an apprenticeship with the Sidhe, or fairies, and why don't they call it the Sidhe in the text of the book? This is something I don't understand. This is the thing that got me. Never one to accept monetary payment for the help she offered, Biddy would often swap home-brewed alcohol for her services, which in turn made her ramshackle cottage a hub for the local community. When her little corner of the county drew the attention of the Catholic Church and the local authorities, things became very difficult for this unusual woman. That is not really included in this story. It doesn't say anything about the exchanging of alcohol. It is really just her with this a fictional apprentice, which is like an author write-in, as explained in the introduction. She's just kind of really vaguely talking about witchcraft. And I thought there was such a wonderful opportunity to talk about how witchcraft and practicing that type of healing and medicine and generally those practices is more aligned with the indigenous culture of Ireland before Catholicism was brought over. And having some framework and some understanding of how the Irish people lived before Catholicism and how this is really quite empowering because it is going back to historical practices. So I have learned a bit more about pagan Irish practice from Bealtaine Cottage, a permaculture YouTube channel that I just adore and have been watching for quite a long time. It's one of the main reasons I've gotten so inspired in permaculture. Colette has a wonderful way of speaking about the pagan practices and the connection of history and nature and those practices and kind of the contrast with other ways of living. So I was hoping for more of an in-depth discussion, or at least a display on the page of some of these ideas. There were some things that I thought were done very beautifully, and that is the illustrations. The illustrations and the really lovely depictions of nature. So generally, I really loved that this was about an Irish witch, and having that story shown was very nice, but I think it could have gone deeper into the connotation, some of the historical background, and some of the truly Irish practices. This seemed a lot more general about modern day witchcraft and less about the real and historical practices of people of Ireland. I think a little more focus on our primary storyline would have done a great service, and especially some research and detail into very specific practices. Some of the context, like that she kind of like ran a bar and that's how she had such a good connection with the townsfolk. I think that would have been really lovely to see. I just ended up a little disappointed. I really loved the artwork. I thought the artwork was really lovely. And again, I do really appreciate hearing about this type of practice, especially in the context of Ireland. I think it's so important that we don't forget that context. But I think trying to market this as a general graphic history about witchcraft and adding all of these elements that are more general to modern witchcraft was not what I would stay for. I understand that people are probably more looking for a general graphic history of witchcraft. If they know that they have somebody in their life who's interested in witchcraft, that's maybe the book that they would buy them as a gift, and maybe not a more niche name in the history of witchcraft. But that's really what this book was about. This was about this one specific person and her story. I think we should have just committed on this one and told that story and told it in depth and well and without interruption. And I think I would have enjoyed my time a little bit more. I do also want to mention one thing that was a pet peeve of mine, and that was any witchcraft that mentioned money. I just find that tacky, especially when in the description it is specifically stated that she would never accept monetary payment for the help she offered. And then we have these, like, you can have a green candle and you roll it around in like some green plant and like you carve money symbols in it or whatever it was, and then if you light it you'll attract money. I just really do not agree with that. I do not agree with that use. I was a little offended by it, to be perfectly honest. That was my feelings. Overall, I would give this 3 stars. I did enjoy my time with it. It made me think quite a lot. And I have never considered myself a witch, but I do witchy things because I do practice permaculture and I do get heavily involved in my garden and with harvest. And when you do that, you end up with stuff like what I'm about to show you, a basket full of herbs drying in your kitchen. And I really do feel like there's a lot of power in feeding yourself from your own work, your own garden, your own soil, really tending to the planet around you to help sustain yourself in some small way. I find that really powerful. So in some ways, I feel drawn to the very natural aspects of the like paganism and witchcraft stuff. That is my review. And it is the end of Sunday now. My weekend is over. I read another children's picture book called They Work by June Smalls. And I picked this one up because it looked like a lovely illustrated book about bees. And I love insects. And I would love to read more any books about insects. I'm just thinking in my mind, it flashed a children's book about earwigs. Oh, wonderful. Wouldn't that be so cool? But anyway, this was about honeybees. This is published through Familius and has a publication date of March 10th. This is a nonfiction book and it is very factual and very realistically illustrated. June Smalls writes fiction and nonfiction books. She wrote about 14 endangered animals from around the world, and she loves researching as a part of her process. And she lives in Northern Virginia. Hello! So I just finished writing a review for a book that I got through NetGalley, or I accessed early through NetGalley, and it's for a children's picture book called They Work by June Smalls and illustrated by Yukari Mishima, which it looks like this is a part of a series of nature children's picture books that showcases specific animals, and that these two folks, the writer and illustrator, work together for this series. I was so impressed by their work and the quality of their work and the care that they put into this book. I gave this 5 stars. I have to explain the structure of this book before I go further. So this book is about honeybees, and the concept is they work. So as a hive, they are working together and the different functions that the honeybees serve in the hive. That is the framework that we have. And we have pieces that are in large text, and there's smaller font also on each page. So the large text tells a cohesive story for like younger children. If you just wanted to read the large text, you could go through and read that. But if you want more detail, you can read the small text. And I actually love this idea because I feel like this would get you more use out of your book. Either if you have an older child and a younger child, the younger kid could read the large text, the older kid could read the small text, or you as a family read it together. Different people will get different things from it. If you have one child, they could grow into the smaller text. Like I'm thinking about when I was in middle school and I looked in the library, there were these really cool big fact books, like facts about dinosaurs or facts about space. And it had all of this tiny little text next to pictures, and you could like dive more deeply into a subject that you were interested in. So with this book, you can do that, but within the same book that you read as a younger child. So I love the whole idea of it. Because I had read it in kind of fits and starts, I think is the phrase. I had read it off and on. I was reading this large font, and then I was reading all the small font, and I had to zoom in to the small font. Anyway, when I went to write the review, I thought, you know what, I should read all of the larger text to see how cohesive that story is if I were like a younger reader. And I just so enjoyed that experience rereading through that text that I was like, I have to give this a 5, because there was clearly so much thought and care and good research put into this book. I did give it 5 stars, and it is really a well-deserved 5 stars. A few things that I loved about it. So the illustrations, first of all, are so realistic, and they really show you what's going on. They show you really clearly, like, this is a honeybee, and then there's like pictures of yellow jackets, and you're like, this is so real to life that you could be able to identify things based on the illustrations alone, which I think is so helpful. Two things that I highlighted in my review and that I just was so impressed by. One is the specific mention and illustration of the use of pesticides and how harmful that is to bees. Because I feel like we kind of shy away from that stuff and that topic, but it's really important that children know and can make better decisions than the current adults do. The next thing that really, really impressed me was a whole page dedicated to how bees, when they find a really good source of nectar, they are able to communicate that to the hive. And it's really amazing how they're able to do this. They do like this communication through like a dance. They're able to orient themselves inside the hive without access to like the sunlight and stuff. So it's really cool and really impressive. So I thought that portrayal in a children's book was, again, just really impressive and showed that there's a lot of care and attention being given to this topic and to the kids who will read this. Overall, I was so impressed, and I'm curious about their other work, this author and illustrator. I feel very grateful right now. The last book that I have finished reviewing is How to Talk to Your Succulent, and I actually had to get approved for this one, so I'm very grateful for the opportunity to review this book. This is a middle grade graphic novel. This is published through Penguin Random House Canada and is in the Tundra Books imprint. This has a publication date of March 31st. Oh my gosh, this is so cute. Sorry, I'm on Zoe Persico's website and I just see this book called Mothman Baby, and it is the cutest little illustration. Oh my god. Zoe Persico is an author and illustrator with a love for the wild, wondrous, and whimsical. And it mentions here that How to Talk to Your Succulent is her debut, a middle grade graphic novel. So very excited for her. When she's not working, she enjoys board games, and she has a dog named Zombie. Good morning, good morning. Now I have my bagel. Just got cream cheese on my bookshelf. Whoops. I just finished reading a graphic novel, a middle grade, whoa. How to Talk to Your Succulent by Zoe Persico. I'm noticing an interesting phenomena with doing these NetGalley reviews. I usually don't write out a review for a book, but with this, I have to. That's the exchange. I get access for a book in exchange for a review, and I've noticed that when I'm considering these reviews, I'm really putting a lot more thought into my reading experience and trying not to let like how I read affect the content of the book, I suppose. So even though I may have read this, you know, in the middle of the night when I couldn't sleep, and like the circumstances around it maybe weren't ideal, I'm still trying to look at the book and kind of what it brings, and also more outside of myself, thinking about what this would bring to the target audience. Because this is a middle grade graphic novel, I'm trying to read it in that lens. And I feel like I did the same thing with They Work, where I was reading this from the perspective of a parent or the perspective of a child. I usually don't do that when I'm just reading and telling you what I think about a book, because I'm reading it for myself. And when reading for a review, I have to think about what is useful information for other people to have. So it's really changed my perspective on how to talk about these books. So this book is about a girl. Her name is Adara, and she has moved with her father from California to Michigan. They've moved in with her grandmother. And her father has not been communicating very well. Adara's mom has died. Clearly, her father is trying to deal with it, and he needs help. So he's moved in with his mom, basically. But Adara doesn't really know what's going on because her dad won't talk about it, and he's avoiding the topic. Adara's mother had kept a lot of houseplants and was really enamored by houseplants. And so her father moved with all of the houseplants, and they're very sentimental to him. He has them in a room. And she has this comment where it's like she would catch her mom talking to the houseplants. So she kind of tries to do it. Like she has some stuff going on, obviously, with her dad. So she's like, maybe if I just talk to my houseplants, I'll feel better. It turns out she can actually talk to houseplants, and her mother could as well. She also has a human friend. There's a girl who lives in this new neighborhood of hers. She has a bit of a tough time with her home situation and her parents, and so they meet, they hang out, they sketch. Because of the things that Adara has going on in her life, she hasn't been the most compassionate friend. She hasn't been very good at listening and caring for the issues that her friend is having. This is a really wonderful message about empathy and compassion, listening, and being able to recognize, even if unintentionally, you've caused harm to those around you. There's so much nuance in this book about their various relationships and how slight miscommunications can snowball if they're not addressed. So I really loved how this story was teaching and showing how to communicate with those that you love and how to address when there's issues. So again, I just loved the message of this book and how well it was done. I also felt like there was a whole world, there were whole people, whole characters, which is usually one of my big issues with graphic novels, is that they don't feel complete enough. This definitely felt complete. Like, we knew what Adara's hobbies were back when she was in California and how she doesn't really have access to those anymore. So we can really get a sense of like what she's lost with her mother and with like who she was before. And I love that touch. It's very simple and it's very quick, but having moments like that make it a much more complete story. The art style is stylized, it's unique. Everything's a little bit soft, like there aren't really hard edges to things, and I really do enjoy that. The character design was not exactly my preference, but I did appreciate that it was its own style. I think that some people are gonna love it, but it wasn't exactly my taste. I did really love how the settings were portrayed. I thought that was really beautiful. I thought the colors were really lovely. They were kind of like this warm, but also a little muted. You know the song The Middle by Jimmy Eat World? Every time it comes on, I'm like, yes. Yes. So me. I need to hear this. I need to be reminded of this. I kind of felt a similar way with this book. It seems simple, it feels simple, but having a reminder of just how humans are was nice. So anyway, I found it very comforting, and I really appreciate what it will do for young people. On theme, I suppose, for today, we are going to go to gardens. We are going to go to a garden and spend some time there. So I hope that I get some healing from all the little plants and everything. So now I have 2 more books left to review that I have currently. So I guess I forgot to mention this. I did state that a part of this exchange, how it works, is that you provide a review, and I have provided written reviews for these works that are on NetGalley, and I also posted them on Goodreads. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you've ever used NetGalley, if you're interested in using NetGalley, any experiences you've had. I would love to hear your thoughts. Also, let me know if you think any of these books sound interesting. As you can tell, I really loved 3 of them. If you enjoyed this video, consider sharing it with a friend who you think would also enjoy the video. Consider liking and subscribing, and I will be back again soon.